I'm standing on the edge of this skate park and watching my 11-year-old nephew drop into the bowl on his scooter and do some really impressive tricks. But what really impressed me is that he was doing this in front of hundreds of people in a skate competition, and he'd never competed before. I was truly blown away. I was thinking back going, man, when I was that aged, would I have done this? And I'm going, no. I mean, first thing, I can't even stand up on a skateboard or a scooter right now without falling off. So that would be a big reason why I wouldn't do it. But also, I would have had stage fright. I mean, I had stage fright for him as he was in this competition, but he did absolutely amazing. And it really got me thinking, I'm like, wow, not only was I impressed, but like, how was he able to do that? How was he able to sort of put that courage together, together all the pieces that would allow him to be that young man to step into that competition and to do as well as he did? It was super impressive. It really got me thinking, how was he able to do that? And it got me thinking back to this line that Seth Godin had sent out in a blog. Seth Godin is a great writer, a real thought leader in the space of marketing, and he sends out a daily blog. And he sent out this blog a number of years ago, and the title was Proximity is Truth. And in it, he talks about how our worldview and our proximity defines our truth. And he says sometimes we look at people and we think that they're making a decision that we would see as illogical, or we don't understand it, and it's based on their proximity. And so when I thought about my nephew, in his world, it's definitely still not taking away from what he did, but it was in his proximity. It was a part of his truth to be able to step up and to take on this competition. He was raised in a way that allowed him to sort of step into that. He was a part of a culture that allowed him to step in and do that. Absolutely impressive, amazing, but it was a part of his world. It was never a part of my world. It was part of his proximity. And if we define our proximity as the people that we spend time with, our influences, we define it as the books that we read, what influences us from social media, basically anything that sort of surrounds us and helps to create our worldview. Our proximity is our truth. A couple of examples would be, if we think back in history, there was quite a long period of time between when it was discovered that the world was round and when people actually believed it. So why would people believe that the world was flat if it had been proven that it was round hundreds of years before? Well, everybody around them believed it was flat. There's still people today that believe that the world is flat. But if you're surrounded by a bunch of people that believe that the world is flat and everybody tells you that the world is flat, and it doesn't really, whether that's true or not is irrelevant because you believe that it's flat because everybody around you believes that it's flat, even if it's round. So it was a part of the proximity. I live just outside of Vancouver. We like to joke that those that live in Toronto believe that Toronto is sort of the center of the universe and the best city in Canada. And we think that that's kind of funny. But why do people that live in Toronto believe that it's the best city in Canada? It's because everybody else that lives in Toronto and that surrounds them, that is friends with them and a part of their influence, they also believe that Toronto is the best city in Canada. I don't need to get into the back and forth what the best city in Canada is, but we believe what we believe because of the influences that are around us, the people that are around us. So with this sort of idea, when we come across these moments where we wake up and we look in the mirror and we're kind of going, how did I get here? Or we identify a gap between where I am right now and where I'd like to be in the future. Or there's a truth in our life that isn't necessarily the truth that I want. So maybe it's my relationship with Christ. And I'm recognizing that my relationship with Christ is not so much a relationship as much as it is a transaction that happens for a couple of hours on a Sunday morning. It's sort of this in-out, and I want a relationship. What do we do once we've identified that? One thing that we can do is we can step back and look at what's in our proximity. Is there anything that's allowing us to move towards that deeper relationship, or whatever area, whatever gap it is that you see? Is our proximity actually allowing us to move towards it, or is it pulling us away from the direction that we would like to go? So one way that we can implement real change in our life is to look at, when we see that gap, when we have that look in the mirror moment going, okay, how did I get here? This isn't where I want to be. And we've identified a gap between where we are today and where we'd like to be in the future. We can work it back and look at, okay, so what's in my proximity? We can take a look at, what am I allowing to influence my life? What am I reading? Am I setting myself up with friendships or people that I spend time with that are actually headed in that same direction that I would like to go? So if you're looking to deepen your relationship with Christ, do I spend time with anybody else that has that similar goal? Or am I plugging into Bible studies or doing devotions in such a way that would allow me to move in that direction to change that? But it's a good place to start when we identify those gaps in our lives and going, okay, so what's in my proximity? What's influencing me? And is it going to be influencing me in the direction that I would like to move towards, or is it influencing me in a direction that I would like to move away from? So I know people talk about it, you look at your friend group and evaluate those friendships and whether they're sort of positive or negative. Don't come at that. I've never come at that as looking at that as being judgmental. I don't want to judge, look in the people around me going, oh, that person's not who I should be hanging out with because of X, Y, Z. But you do want to start to make better judgment calls. Andy Stanley talks about this. He's a pastor out of the United States. He says, don't be judgmental, but have better judgment. So maybe you're limiting the amount of time or the amount of influence that some of these people are having in your life if you recognize that they're not headed in the right direction. It's relatively easy. You can start to pick up on it. You know the direction that your friends and family are headed. If they look at the view, look at the world, a glass half full or a glass half empty sort of attitude. And how much time are you allowing those people to have in your life? How much influence are they allowed to have in your life? How are they allowed to speak into your life? These are all little adjustments you can make, not by being judgmental, but having good judgment about how you sow your time. An example would be if you spend a lot of time with people that are constantly complaining about how difficult life is, how challenging it is, or maybe even it's something like how much they really dislike their job. If you're spending a lot of time with those people and they're kind of speaking into your life, you're going to find yourself also sort of this outcome of feeling like, oh man, my life also is really challenging, or my life is also really difficult, or man, I really don't like my job. And you're kind of going, well, I never really thought that way before. Life hits all of us. We all have different challenges at different phases of life. I even lost an eyebrow if you watch that previous video, which is slowly growing back, by the way. But we all face different challenges at different points in life, and some of them are going to be bigger than others, but we're all going to go through it. Life is going to happen to every single one of us, so we get the opportunity to react. Now, if the people in your proximity are reacting different than maybe you would like to react, then we need to look at how we change and spend time with those people. In the book of Proverbs, King Solomon said, "Walk with the wise and become wise, and the companion of fools suffers harm." I mean, that was written thousands and thousands of years ago, but the wisdom still stands true today. Walking with the wise will help you to become wise. It was written about then the people that we spend time with, how we invest our time matters, and that's creating our proximity. So I just want you to hopefully take this question, just this idea of proximity as truth, and just pause and think for a second and go, what's in my proximity? What's my truth? And how is that affecting where I'm heading, or what's God's calling me to, the calling that God has in your life? How's that affecting God's call in your life and the direction that he wants you to go? And I think you're going to find that you're going to be able to dig into that question, dig into that sort of statement of proximity as truth, and look at the world from a different perspective and shift and be able to make some changes to move in the right direction. If we haven't met before, my name is Jason Alcott. I am the author of the upcoming book, The Sowing Principle. Thank you so much for your time today. Hope you have an absolutely awesome day, and I look forward to sharing with you again next week.